Sagittarius. Maybe you haven't said it out loud, but your Sagittarius soul, the oldest light inside you, has already felt the exhaustion you've been hiding. Tired in every breath, tired in sleep that no longer brings warmth. Tired in the way your eyes look at the world and find nothing left to hope for. You are not weak. You've just been walking in the dark for too long without anyone holding your hand. And today, if you happen to pause here, that is not an accident. This is a healing message from the universe, sent to the right soul at the right moment. Sent for those who are drained to the bone, but still haven't given up. And if your heart just stirred a little reading these words, stay with me a little longer. Because the first thing your Sagittarius soul wants you to face is not some glorious promise, but a gentle truth. You are tired. Not tired from laziness, but tired from trying too hard for too long, in silence. Tired from giving, even when you've run dry yourself. And now it's time we walk into the deepest layer. A place most people don't dare to revisit. The realm of complete exhaustion, where even your soul is crying out quietly. There are forms of tiredness that have no name. They don't show on your face, they leave no trace on your skin. They just sit somewhere deep, quietly, like a scratch on the soul no one sees. You still smile, you still work, still reply to messages, still show up on time, still care for others. But when night comes, when the room goes dark and all the noise fades, what do you feel? An emptiness that has no name. A heaviness that isn't in the body, but inside. That's the kind of exhaustion where even your soul no longer wants to continue. No one sees it, no one measures it, but you know, because you live with it every single day. It's when you can't find a reason to get out of bed. When you're no longer excited about the things that once lit you up, and words like, hang in there, suddenly feel hollow. I'm not here to tell you to get back up. I'm not here to say you need to be stronger. I'm only here to remind you, you are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to pause, and most importantly, you are allowed to live truthfully with the feelings you're carrying, without having to apologize for them. I used to ignore my own exhaustion. I called it laziness, weakness, or self-pity. Until I finally realized it wasn't my body that was tired, but my soul, screaming silently. Do you know that feeling? When you're the one everyone turns to for advice, but you don't even know what to say to yourself. When you are someone else's anchor, but you have nowhere to lean. When you help others heal, while you yourself are quietly falling apart. Maybe you don't even remember the last time you truly felt at peace. Not joyful, not triumphant, just quietly whole. A place where you could breathe without feeling guilty for simply existing. I used to think if I just tried a little harder, things would get better. So I did. Then a little more, and a little more, until I finally realized it wasn't that I needed to keep pushing. It was that I needed to stop. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't to keep walking. It's to pause and ask, where am I going? For whom? And am I still even there in my own journey? Maybe today you don't need a new path. You just need a safe place to sit down, to be honest, to say, I'm tired, and to stop pretending to be strong. Close your eyes for a moment. Can you hear it? Not the voice in your head, but the whisper in your chest. It's saying, dear soul, it's time to come home. Because no one can live forever in a state of bracing. Even the strongest souls need a place to rest, need someone to say, you don't have to carry this alone. And if you're still reading these words, I believe this is not a coincidence. Your soul brought you here, because it's been too long since you last heard yourself. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, I've come too far to keep abandoning myself. I give myself permission to be soft. I deserve to rest without needing to prove anything. If these words feel like they're touching something in you, something you haven't named yet, just leave a single sentence in the comments. Just one. As a sign that you're beginning to return to yourself. I'm tired, and now I want to live truthfully. Or, I don't want to be strong alone anymore. We're all tired, but when you admit it, you open the first door toward healing. And here, you are safe. Here you are not alone. Here, the Sagittarius soul within you is holding your hand so you don't collapse again. And then when the exhaustion reaches its end, you think you'll fall. But strangely, you still go on. No one sees you sitting quietly at the window, watching the city lights like someone lost in their own life. No one hears the tears you hide beneath the running water. You keep going, not because there's hope left, but because you don't know how to turn back. And that very place, where there is no light, yet you still walk, is where we must stop, to listen to another truth about the souls who have run dry of belief, but still haven't let go. There's something called hope, once your most faithful companion. It held your hand through the rainy days, lifted you up each time you stumbled. It used to whisper, "Keep going, something good is still waiting at the end of the road." But there are seasons in life when hope no longer speaks. Hope no longer runs to hold you like it once did. Hope doesn't disappear, but it goes quiet. Like a wounded friend, it lies curled inside your chest, not dead, but too tired to lift you anymore. You still go on, not because you still have the drive, but because you don't know what else to do except keep moving. You still breathe, like a fan spinning after the power's gone out, running on nothing but inertia. You still work, you smile, you nod, all by reflex. But inside, something is slipping away, and you don't know how to name it. You drift like an unmanned vessel lost in the vast ocean of life, with no sense of where you're going anymore. And the scariest part is this. No one notices it but you. You've gotten better at hiding. You know how to smile even when you're empty inside. You say, "I'm fine," so well, even you start to believe it. You've become the one who lifts others up while quietly breaking into pieces no one ever sees. Hope is no longer a light, it's a mist. There, then gone. A faint echo from a place you're no longer sure you can call upon. You used to pray. You used to write down your wishes. You used to believe, if I can just get through tomorrow, things will be okay. But then tomorrow came, and nothing changed. You begin to ask yourself, do I still believe in anything at all? If you're there now, where promises have faded, where dreams have lost their color, where faith itself is too tired to stand, then please know this, you are not lost, you are simply crossing the desert. And in the desert, every living thing knows. Just because there are no birds doesn't mean there's no life. Just because there's no water doesn't mean you can't survive. Hope is the same. It doesn't need to shine bright, it just needs not to leave you. I believe that if you are still reading these words, it means hope, however faint its breath, is still alive inside you. I once asked God on a night when my heart felt darker than any moonless sky, "Where are you when I've lost all faith?" And I heard nothing. No whisper, no dream, no sign. But a few days later, a stranger smiled at me in a crowded street. A message came from an old friend. "Hey, are you okay these days?" A forgotten song started playing just as I was ready to give up, and I cried. I don't know if that was God, but I know this, that was hope, quietly returning. Not in a grand heroic form, not like the miracles in storybooks, but as a soft breath, a gentle glance, a small hand reaching out, seemingly meaningless, yet enough to stop you from letting go of yourself. You don't need to know what tomorrow will bring. You don't need a perfect reason to keep going. You just need to hold on to one thing. I'm still here. And maybe that is enough. Enough for hope to slowly return, not as a thunderous call across the desert, but as a warm hand placed gently on your shoulder, whispering, "Keep walking." Not because you must, but because something is still waiting for you at the end of the road. If your heart feels heavy reading these words, if something inside you stirs, leave a sentence behind as a soft promise to yourself. I don't need to believe in everything. I just need to believe I won't abandon myself. Hope doesn't always blaze like fire. Sometimes it's just a dim glow, burning quietly in your chest through the long dark. But if you don't snuff it out, it will be enough to light your way in the moment you need it most. And if you're still going, even without whole belief, even when no one is waiting at the end of your road, You're braver than you think. Not everyone has the strength to walk through the dry lands of hope and still protect a seed within, one that hasn't bloomed yet. And sometimes, just refusing to abandon yourself is a sacred act. If what you truly need right now isn't an answer, but a peaceful life, one where you don't have to exhaust yourself to be worthy, then maybe that is exactly what your soul has been trying to remind you. And now, we move into what comes next, the space where your simplest longings carry the greatest healing power. There are seasons in life when you no longer dream of grand things. You no longer want to be on top of the world. You no longer care to be someone others admire. You no longer crave proving yourself, competing, or shining. Peace is not like stage lights, bright and full of applause. It's like a cup of warm tea on a rainy afternoon, like the sound of your dog barking when you come home. Or simply, when you do nothing at all and still feel worthy of love. I used to believe peace was a reward, something earned by those who conquered every storm, that only after we'd won enough battles, we'd be allowed to live slowly. But I was wrong. Peace is not a destination. Peace is a birthright of the soul. You don't need to succeed to feel calm. You don't need to be rich to live simply. You only need to dare say, I choose to live in a way that no longer hurts me. There was a time I sat in a silent room. No one called me. No one needed me. For the first time in years, I wasn't somebody in anyone else's eyes. I was just myself. And I suddenly cried, because I realized I had run so far from myself just to arrive at a place I never truly wanted. Maybe you felt that too. Felt like you had to hold on to everything so no one would walk away. Felt like you had to make more money just to feel worthy. Felt like if you lived simply, you'd be left behind. But ask yourself, does complexity really keep anyone close? Do the things we own truly feed what's inside us? I once asked a man who lived near the mountains, "Are you afraid of being poor?" He smiled and said, "I'm not afraid of poverty. I'm only afraid of being rich without a soul." Some people don't lose themselves because they chose the wrong path, but because they never stopped to ask, do I even want to go this way? If you feel something inside you longing for softness, for slowness, for less chaos, then trust that is not a sign of giving up. That is transformation, a quiet bell ringing within, calling you back to wholeness. Maybe you no longer want more possessions, but more time to breathe. Not more titles, but a place where you can be yourself without judgment. If you've ever felt peace in a simple meal, in a quiet afternoon with nothing planned, in a wordless song, then maybe that's your soul speaking its truest voice. I don't want more. I just want enough to live truthfully. Leave yourself a quiet affirmation. I deserve a gentle life. Or, I don't have to run just to feel alive. The greatest lesson I've ever learned is this. The world doesn't keep score of those who live slowly, but the universe hears them the loudest. Because within that slowness, there is love, there is truth, and there is light. If you feel something in your heart shifting, softening, releasing the tangled layers of a life filled with too much pressure, pause and ask yourself, am I living the life I truly want? And if the answer is not yet, then maybe today is your beginning. It doesn't have to be loud. It only needs a quiet choice. I will slow down, but in the right direction. And once you've walked long enough to know that not everything grand is worth keeping, you'll begin to see it's the simple things that are eternal. And when you return to simplicity, you lose nothing. You come back to the things that have never betrayed you. But even when you choose to live gently, there are still wounds that need to be touched. There are pains that don't need reasons. They only need to be seen. Because sometimes it's not everything around you that needs to change. It's just one part of you that needs to be held. And that is where we now arrive together. A place where you are allowed to be soft, allowed to cry, allowed to be healed. No one ever taught you how to be safely vulnerable. Since you were young, you were told to be brave, to behave, to stop crying, to not burden others with your sadness. Over time, you forgot something important. Tears are also a form of strength. You learned to wipe them away in silence. You learned to lift your chin even when your heart was collapsing. You became an inspiration, the one who always gets through. But sometimes, you just wish someone would come close and say, "It's okay. You can cry. I'm still here." I want you to know this. There is nothing wrong with being tired, fragile, or broken open. If part of you is trembling, if you've ever sat in the dark, just wishing someone would understand, then let me say this. You don't have to be strong alone anymore. You were afraid. Can you remember the last time you let someone see your real tears? Maybe it's been a long time, because you were afraid if you broke down, everything else would collapse too. You were afraid if you stopped, no one would help you stand again. You feared that if you revealed yourself, you might no longer be loved. But that was the lie of fear. The truth is, the one who deserves you the most is the one who stays when you are at your weakest. There was a time I cried in front of someone. I didn't say a word, I just let the tears fall, and they did nothing except hold my hand. No advice, no empty comfort, just a warm hand resting on a cold one. And in that moment, I understood. Healing doesn't begin with answers. It begins with presence. You don't have to explain all your pain. You don't have to justify every scar. Some wounds don't need to be fixed right away. They just need to be acknowledged. If there's something inside you that hasn't yet healed, then pause. Don't avoid it. Don't rush past it. Sit with it. Ask it, where did you come from? And then listen, without judgment. You might be surprised to realize that pain just wants to be held. It never wanted to hurt you. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, "I give myself permission to be fragile. I don't need to be okay right now. I don't deserve to be abandoned just because I'm falling apart." If you've ever felt lonely in a crowd, if you've ever smiled while feeling empty, if you've ever collapsed alone and no one knew, leave a sentence below as a sign that you're coming back to yourself. I'm learning to embrace the fragile parts of me. Or, I deserve to be healed, even if I don't know where to begin. One of the most important lessons I've ever learned is this. We don't need to be healed to be worthy of love. We are worthy of love, even while we're still healing. And from that place, healing begins. Not in fireworks, not in miracles, but in softened breaths. In sleep that no longer startles you awake. In days that slowly pass, where you no longer need to brace yourself just to exist. And when you begin to heal, you'll suddenly remember all the times you were treated unfairly. The times you stayed silent and endured. The times you forgave, not because they deserved it, but because you didn't want your heart to carry one more weight. You thought it was all behind you. But in truth, justice was just taking its time. Not because it forgot you, but because it was waiting for the right moment. And here's a gentle truth, one that never fails. God never left you. He saw it all. And now, He is moving. There are things in life you may never understand. Why the sincere ones get hurt. Why the dishonest get away clean. Why those who try the hardest often suffer the most. How many times have you asked, "God, where were you when I broke? Did you see them betray me? Why is justice so slow?" And then, you stopped asking, you stopped pleading, you just breathed, and lived on with a quiet bitterness glowing in your chest like a bed of coals. But God was not silent. He was waiting for you to grow strong enough that you wouldn't need revenge. He never abandoned you. He stepped back so you could learn to stand, and then He acted. True justice isn't revenge. It's when truth rises without the need for defense. It's when light returns to the ones forgotten, and darkness no longer has a place to hide. Maybe you haven't seen it yet, but it's already happening. In the places you least expect, in the dreams that carry a warning, in the ones who left you, now growing restless in their silence. The universe doesn't follow human clocks, but the universe never ignores a single cry from an honest heart. I know you've swallowed injustice in silence, forgiven without ever receiving an apology, held your voice when you had every right to scream. But what you chose is what makes you different. You chose not to hurt others, even while you were hurting. You chose to let go instead of passing on the pain. And that is why God chose to stand by you. No one saw you cry in the middle of the night, but God did. No one knew how much you trembled just to hold on to your goodness, but God knew. No one understood how hard you tried, but God recorded every single moment in the language of the soul. Write something to yourself. I believe justice has not forgotten me, or God never left me, even when I doubted him. You don't need to reclaim anything, because what belongs to you will find its way back, and what does not will leave on its own, as gently as a golden leaf letting go of its branch without even needing the wind. If someone once placed harm into your life, release them. Not because you are weak, but because you believe in a court greater than any earthly defense, the court of the soul. And God is handling it, silently, precisely, not a second off. When you choose to live with integrity, you don't need to fight with the weapons of the world, because your purity is already a kind of light that darkness cannot reach. If you've ever thought, no one is standing with me, please know this. God has been standing there since the beginning. He just needed you to learn how to stand tall before he made the unjust fall. And then you'll understand. Justice doesn't come to take revenge. Justice comes to return you to yourself. If these words touch something inside you, write down something you've never dared to say. Maybe it's, I am still healing from something unfair. Or, I am ready to reclaim the light that was once stolen from me. And if you've made it all the way here, I believe you are no longer who you once were. Maybe you've fallen. Maybe you've lost something you once believed in, but you haven't lost yourself. Because you didn't abandon yourself in the darkest hour. You are a soul who has walked through darkness and still kept the light, and that no justice on earth can deny. If you are still here, if you've journeyed with me through every layer of feeling, from weariness to disorientation, to the longing for simplicity, to the permission to be soft, to the moment you remembered that God never left you, then know this, you've gone farther than most, farther than even you realized. You don't need success to prove that. The very fact that you listened and didn't walk away from yourself is proof enough that your soul is awakening. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you live, what you've lost, what you're grieving, or what you're holding together with sheer will. But if these words have touched you, then I know one thing for sure. The light in you is still alive, and the truth in you is still calling you home. Thank yourself. Not because you're perfect, but because you didn't abandon yourself when it got the hardest. Place your hand over your chest and say something soft, but true. I deserve peace. I am healing, one breath at a time. I am living proof of quiet resilience. A note of gratitude from me and from your soul. Thank you for staying until the very last lines. Thank you for having the courage to face what so many are still avoiding. Thank you for choosing light even after spending so long in the dark. And if something in you has shifted, even just a little, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with a friend, a quiet soul who may need it too, because maybe that small thread will become the beginning of their healing. And if you feel ready, leave just one sentence in the comments. As a mark on your journey, I'm still here and I'm beginning again in truth. You don't need to know every step ahead. You only need to believe this. The light never goes out in someone who refuses to give up. And you are one of those souls. We will meet again when your soul needs another whisper to remind you you have never been forgotten, and you are still being guided home.